Nothing happened this weekend, but that's disappointing. I'm disappointed. Disappointed. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Sam here. How are you guys doing today? Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Today, we're going to be talking about the Talladega race weekend. We didn't have much news that came out of this weekend, but we'll talk about a few little stories that we do have. Some news that did come out of this weekend is that it was announced that Wrangler would be helping sponsor Blaney for a few races. I don't know if it's said for next year or for this year, but a few races Wrangler will be sponsoring Ryan Blaney, which I think is pretty cool in my opinion, because Wrangler was obviously a long-time sponsor of Dale Earnhardt, and then GM Goodwrench came in, but it's still pretty classic. And then Clint Boyer, it was announced that he would have Blue Def as his sponsor for a few races next year. Look out for that. Other than that, we really didn't have that much news coming out of this weekend, which wasn't surprising because he had a big news week last week. It was good that it calmed down a little bit. For the race rundown, it was boring for most of the race. Not much happened. There was a bunch of short packs with a few cars. But, like, the Stewart-Haas cars were all in one pack, and they pulled out super far. It was, like, 7 seconds ahead of, like, the second pack. They worked together all day. Really good teamwork all around. And then the first 10 laps, Jeffrey Earnhardt crashed. That was the only caution that came out in the first stage. He would spin out on the front stretch, and he would end up crashing. And then in the second stage, Jimmy Johnson would actually end up doing the same thing. He would spin out into the grass, and he actually hit the wall. Luckily for him, he came back to finish in the top 10. I mean, it doesn't really matter because he's no longer in the chase, so wins are the only thing that really matters for him. But in the final stage, there was some good racing. There was one exciting restart where a bunch of different people pitted. There was a bunch of different strategies. William Byron, Brad Keselowski, they stayed out. And then the Stewart-Haas cars were a little farther back, so they weren't in their front pack like there was most of the day on most restarts. So there was a bunch of good racing in that pack, in my opinion, and William Byron took the lead for a few laps. Brad Keselowski led a few laps, and then eventually the Stewart-Haas cars caught back up, and they all had their group going on, and then they all helped each other out. In my opinion, I really don't like this kind of racing. I don't like the racing of helping out your teammates. I like every man for themselves kind of thing. I don't like this single file. I miss the tandem drafting that happened back in 2010, 2011. That was some of the best racing of all time, in my opinion. At least at restrictor plate track, where 88 lead changes happened in 2 consecutive years. But I just don't like this freight training stuff. I kind of liked the stuff where it was like a pack, but there would be a main dominant car. I kind of liked that. That was kind of exciting because there would be, you know, a bunch of crashes, and I do like crashes. But overall, it's not as good as the tandem racing. As soon as we had something good, NASCAR took it away. But since the restrictor plate racing will not be a thing next year at Talladega, we'll see how it works out. Maybe it'll be better, maybe it'll be worse. And then with about 40 laps to go, DJ Kennington would pit. He would have a tire that would go loose, and he would have the tire go across pit road and into the grass. I really don't know why they pulled a caution out for that, but they did. I mean, I saw a tweet on Twitter that said a driver could spin out and hit it. First of all, a driver's not going to spin out in this race. That's not something that would happen. That would be exciting, and exciting things wouldn't happen in this race. Second of all, the chances of a driver hitting it is highly unlikely, even if he does spin out into the grass. And third of all, cars are on the other side of the track the entire time. The cars are pretty close to each other. It's not like another racetrack where like the cars are there's like cars at every part of the racetrack. The cars are all on one main part of the racetrack. You could go get it when they're on the other side of the racetrack. I don't get why they had to have a caution for that, but that's just my opinion. I'm never gonna complain about a caution, but in that kind of scenario, I just don't think it was necessary because we could have had a fuel mileage race. And we did have a fuel mileage race, actually. And on that caution, with about 40 laps to go, a bunch of people would pit, some people would not pit, and that would cause for an exciting finish because in the final laps, there was a bunch of people trying to make a pack to catch up to the Stewart-Haas cars, but they would be racing too hard to where they couldn't make a big draft, and it caused them to not be able to catch up to them. But it wouldn't matter because there was a caution for a crash. Alex Bowman would crash, William Byron would crash, a few other drivers would crash, and that would cause a restart. Now, on this caution, though, they stayed green for a few laps, which I don't understand why. They stayed green for an extra lap, and NASCAR actually never gave us an explanation why they did that. Then we went back green, we had a restart. Kurt Busch looked like he was going to pull away. Kevin Harvick went to pit road on that restart because he was running out of gas. A few other drivers followed him, I think. But on that restart, Matt DiBenedetto and Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott crashed on the final lap. And the rule is there's a caution on the final lap that ends the race. Immediately, the race is over. They decided to not pull a caution out for that, and they let the cars race around, causing Kurt Busch to run out of gas and then Eric Almirola won the race. Cool for Eric Almirola because that was his first win since July of 2014. It's also his first real win because the other one was rain shortened. And it's really frustrating because he would have gotten more like real wins if it weren't for bullshit that happened, like at Dover, where Clint Bowyer spun out and hit the wall and caused a caution. Eric Almirola was going for that win. But after that, Kurt Busch had some things to say. He wasn't happy about that. He first said that he was not happy about them staying under caution for an extra lap, which would cause him to run out of gas. And I can agree with that. I do agree with that. I don't know why they did that. And then he was also mad that they did not call a caution when there was a crash on the final lap, which I do agree with NASCAR for not calling a caution for that, but with a twist. I think when NASCAR, if there's a crash on the final lap and they need to pull a caution out for that, I think that they should do another overtime restart. I don't think they should do the next flag ends the race, or even what ARCA does where they have a one-lap shootout. I think it should be a two-lap shootout to the finish, so the race has to end under green. Unless if it's like a super, super big crash where, like, a car flipped into the catch fence or something. I feel like other than that, like, the race has to end under green. I mean, obviously, unless if it's like a rain-shortened race or something like that, the race should have to end under green. So I agree with him that there should have been a caution on the final lap, but I'm also happy that they let him race, because I feel like there could have been, like, I understand his frustration, but I feel like that was a crash deserving enough of them to stay under green. But also in the truck race, there was a crash. And I feel like both races, they should have stayed under green. Now, if we look at the point standings, we have Eric Almirola and Chase Elliott both locked in. Kevin Harvick is locked in on points. And then Kyle Busch is 46 points above the cut line. Joey Logano is 39 points above the cut line. Kurt Busch is 30 points above the cut line. They're all pretty safe. Clint Bowyer is 21 points above the cut line. Martin Truex Jr. is 18 points above the cut line. With Brad Keselowski 18 points below the cut line. Ryan Blaney 22 points below the cut line. Kyle Larson 26 points below the cut line. And Alex Bowman 68 points below the cut line. He is in a must-win situation coming into Kansas. Other guys can hope for points to help them out. Other guys having issues, which Kyle Larson's my championship prediction, so I'm hoping he can make it in. But yeah, guys, this is going to be the end of this episode. If you guys like this video, please leave a like on it. If you dislike this video, please leave a dislike and a hate comment telling me exactly what I did wrong. Be sure to subscribe to notifications, and as always, goodbye, bunny rabbits.